Okay, this is going to be Chapter 9, Lesson Plans, and topics we're going to discuss about here. This chapter is pretty much designed discusses how to develop effective lesson plans. My apologies. So in the topics here, we're going to talk about overview of a lesson plan, the purpose of a lesson plan, sources of lesson plans, part of the lesson plan, and these are all the parts that will go into a lesson plan, and then troubleshooting a lesson plan. Overview of a lesson plan. A lesson plan is a valuable tool for the instructor. It provides basic information needed to teach. Lesson plans explain the depth and the breadth of the lesson and tie together the student objectives. If multiple instructors are teaching a class, the lesson plan serves as a common map and becomes essential. Purpose of a lesson plan. Ties all the lesson objectives into a coherent plan of instruction. Provides structure and ensures important material is covered. Helps instructors prepare to teach the lesson. Matches materials with each objective. Helps us to keep instructors on track. Assists substitute or secondary instructors, provides consistency, and ensures adherence to instructional goals, objectives, and standards. Pretty much this is going to be your roadmap for the class and the lessons that you teach within the class. Sources of lesson plans. We can find all kinds of sources for various types of lesson plans. Example of this would be in the state of Oklahoma, state offices. Oklahoma State Department of Health would have lesson plans. Primary or secondary instructors may have made specialized lesson plans for their favorite courses that they teach. Publishers also have availability of lesson plans. National organizations, American Heart Association and NAMTA, would also have lesson plans over their various rainbow courses, if you will. Things like ACLS, BLS, PALS, PHTLS, and so on. National Association of EMS Instructors or Educators, or NAMC, would also have lesson plans. And then fire departments and EMS services in general would have lesson plans. So all of these are various sources of lesson plans that can be found. Parts of a lesson plan. There are 4 parts. There's the front end, the body or the lesson plan or the content outline, the back end, and then lesson plan evaluation, which is always important to be sure that your lesson plans are effective. So the front end, audience description, lesson goals, lesson objectives, recommended list of equipment and supplies, a recommended schedule, and selected motivational activity. Now we're going to talk about each one of these. So first thing we're going to talk about here is the audience description. And in this statement, it describes who the intended audience is for. An example of this, entry-level EMT students or senior paramedic with command responsibilities. And that would be an example of the variation that you could put in your audience description. So the lesson could be to either one. Lesson goals is the next one. A broad statement of what will be accomplished during the lesson. And an example of this is at the conclusion of this lesson, the student will be able to identify and describe the functions of the endocrine system. A goal that uses verbs such as identify, describe, discuss will be pursued through the lecture or presented format. A goal that identifies, demonstrate, as the desired outcome will be addressed most likely in a practical session. So identify, describe, discuss, this would be knowledge base, and things that would be demonstrate are probably going to be psychomotor. So cognitive versus psychomotor whenever we're talking about varying types of verbiage in the lesson goal. The lesson objective. A lesson objective portion of the lesson plan is a listing of the student's performance objectives that support the lesson goal. They are categorized in 3 domains, and we should be familiar with these domains by now: affective, cognitive, and psychomotor. Objectives may be assigned a numeric sequence, and essentially whenever we assign them a numeric sequence, it would be examples like if we had all 3 types of goals in the same lesson plan. A1, affective 1, cognitive 1, cognitive 2 might be a way of doing this, or we could just number them in general, 1.1, 1.2. So either type. Recommended lists of equipment and supplies is still in the formulation of a lesson plan. Your equipment supplies for the instruction at hand should be listed in the actual lesson plan. So in case you have a substitute instructor, they should be able to formulate this and get all of those supplies and equipment so that they could adequately instruct this. The list can be expanded to instructional models, audiovisuals, equipments, handouts, or practice material. Recommended schedule. This is the estimated time needed for the instructor to teach the lesson. So a guesstimate on how long it should take for you to instruct it. 1.2 hours, 1.3, and so on. The instructor should plan 3 hours of preparation time for each hour of instruction. Selected motivational activity. Motivational activities kind of help direct your students and get them pushed forward. A good idea to place in the lesson plan, so in case you wanted to get them in the right mindset prior to the actual education. Motivation will vary greatly throughout the course. Activities to use: show a picture and ask them to reflect on it. Play a 911 dispatch of an actual call. You can kind of get them fired up depending on what the 911 dispatch is. Tell a war story. Invite a survivor or a former patient to address the class. Invite a provider and tell them a significant experience. So they can share things essentially. You can tell them a war story. You can give them a little pep speech. Anything to select motivation and point them in the right direction for the actual lesson in hand. Body of the lesson plan, content outline. After students are prepared and motivated, it's time for the instruction. The instructor must have complete understanding of the information and the depth and breadth of the material present. Very simply, you need to know the expansiveness of your information, how wide, and this is the table demonstration that I talked about 2 slide sets ago. So how vast is the knowledge, and that would be the breadth, and then the detail in the knowledge would be the depth. Next, the level of instruction must be identified. 6 cognitive levels can be easily broken down into 3. So essentially, basic, learners acquire new information and develop new skills. Intermediate, connect with the knowledge level in basic and demonstrate application. So learning essentially is the basic portion here, or knowledge. This would be application. And then advanced, learners move toward why events occur and as opposed to how to perform a skill. So this is critical thinking level here, and this would be how to problem solve as well. So what we've talked about in the previous slide sets, and we haven't changed any information here, just throwing some new ideas at you. So knowledge, application, problem solving. And last but not least, the back end. The back end, which contains sections that pull the lesson together, check student understanding, and prepare learners for the next lesson. Regardless of the format, the instructor must provide closure to the lesson. To ensure that learning has taken place, the instructor must evaluate. An example of evaluation may be an interaction and class participation, or it could be a quiz or a test over the content that you just talked about, and a reminder for the next lesson. So stay tuned, folks. List of references and websites of any other additional information that would expand on the actual lesson plan or the lesson that you were trying to give in this. And lesson plan evaluation would be the next step. The lesson plan must be continuously reviewed for timeliness, correctness, and applicability. Make sure there's a performance agreement between the materials and the lesson plan. And very simply, that's what we learned in the last one. Whenever you're writing goals and objectives, be sure you have a performance agreement. So in your goals that you wrote out, be sure you have subordinate objectives. And those subordinate objectives are covered in your actual delivery. So structural content, be sure that it flows quite nicely. Make sure there's a performance agreement. Lesson plans need to be evaluated over time due to changes in practice. So an example of this would be the new changes in advanced cardiac life support and BLS that we saw occur in 2010. These items like this change the way people react, because we should have some muscle memory at the point that we've done this skill again and again and again. And this would be even in continuing education format. In new implementation, it isn't so bad because this is the first time the student's been introduced to it. Lesson plan troubleshooting. Lesson plan problems can usually be broken down into two areas, structural or factual. So very simply, the structural problems have to do with the delivery of the lesson material. Is it just structured appropriately? And remember what I said in the last things should flow. Factual. A lesson plan must have the correct information inside it. New sciences, added complexity. An example of this is going to be CPR skills when mouth-to-mouth doesn't need to really be performed. And we've drilled that in their heads for the previous 10, 20 years. Bridging a new science with old skills will help. So tell them why. Give them the cookie, essentially. Tell them why that mouth-to-mouth and ventilation kind of move down on the efficacy list. And then in that, give them the science. And then from there, you have knowledge-based platform that you can go forward with. Summary. A lesson plan is essential in successful EMS education. It provides a map that guides the learner through the educational journey. It is a helpful tool to allow instructors to present the course material in an organized and confident manner. If you have any questions over this content, please feel free to give me a call. My name is Roy Smith, smithr@imsa.net, or 405-219-7613. Thank you.